it somehow. And a lot of the times it's through kind of like it's self-harming themselves. And so because of that, they get punished like by being expelled and being suspended. And instead of like trying to care for them and trying to like help them, we're kind of then pushing them away towards more of the path of the vicious cycle.
One thing that stuck out to me, kind of along the lines of what Callie said, was I found myself like comparing my own experiences to like what I was hearing and how different they were. So there was one doctor in the video that was doing statistics on 7-year-olds about like the violence they had either heard or seen when they were only 7 years old. And I couldn't help but think about how I don't have those experiences, and just kind of thinking about like the stark contrast of how I grew up in the education system and like my own personal experience versus not even thinking about having other stressors in my life that would have impacted how I like learned.
This is similar to what Daniela was saying, but just like thinking about going from like home to school for these children and, you know, all of the stressors and trauma they're experiencing at home. And then how school is supposed to be designed as like a safe space for them to, you know, go and like have stability and have, you know, usually like meals at a reduced cost are provided, just more stability. But then thinking about like when their schools don't have the same resources as schools from wealthier areas just because of their zip code and whatnot, like it becomes like they can't escape the traumatic situation that they're in. And so whether they're at home or in their neighborhoods or at school or trying to learn from home in a pandemic, like there's no real safe outlet for them.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else for the heart part? Well, how about the head part then? So let's put the teacher hat back on. How would you respond to children and adolescents who have experienced traumas like the ones described in this video? So you have to go into a classroom, so to speak, with a large majority of the students having been traumatized in a significant way. And if they weren't, just like you mentioned, I can't see your name, the one who just spoke last time. This idea of COVID just exacerbates it, you know. So if it wasn't particularly traumatic to begin with, I would imagine it is now. I mean, a lot of these students have been online since March. I know my husband's at Vaux High School and he teaches math in our basement since March. And a lot of the kids, which I'll share some stories when we get further, are in and out of being present. And, you know, lots of kids have kind of vanished. So you're now faced with you learned about, you know, what many of their home lives are like and life experiences are like. Now I want to use your head. So what's your response to them as you meet them?
I kept thinking about like mindfulness programs a lot while I was watching this. I kind of thought both like long-term policy changes that have to be made, like structural changes, but then also while we can't have kids, you know, make everything perfect, but we can supply them with tools that they can have that can help them cope with different things. So I would probably do some kind of mindfulness activity to kind of calm them down. I thought it was interesting when they used the analogy that many children feel that there's a truck coming at them all day or more days than not. So I think it's kind of finding a pause point on that stress. So whether that's like to get the stress out, an activity to get it out, or to calm them down, I think that would be my first thing in my toolbox, is maybe some kind of mindfulness activity.
One of the things asked over and over again in the film was he asked the question like, don't ask like what's wrong with you, ask like what happened to you. I think oftentimes when you have children experience who may be lashing out or misbehaving in a certain way, I think that the instinct is like what's wrong with this, like, you know, this student, why are they acting this way? It's more about, you know, a response to that constant trauma in their life. So maybe like taking a broader step back, looking like, how can I be hands-on to help this student experience and kind of to go through and process whatever is going on in their life, rather than a lot of days we see this like attacking them for like what, like almost like a punishment for their action, rather than taking a bigger holistic view of like why. I think is a very important first approach.
Another thing that stuck out to me in the video is the importance of having access to people who have also gone through kind of similar trauma. So I guess like later down the road, just being able to familiarize myself with those types of resources that I could connect students with, so that they at least know like they aren't alone and there is like hope on the other side, and that help is available for them.
I agree with Kelsey and Dan, because personally, I wouldn't have all the answers to how to cope with those things, because it's not something that I've like lived with. So I think it's important to familiarize yourself with resources you can give to others, like do your own research beforehand and have things on hand to give to other students. And like Dan said, it's important not to stigmatize students as to saying like, what's wrong with you or why are you this way? Like approach it with empathy and more so try and understand what they're going through. Especially with younger kids, it's important to understand that.
I also think, going off of what Devin and Dan said, that it's important to take into account a student's personal situation, but it's also important to like treat your students the same. Like don't treat some people like because they're at a disadvantage that they can't go anywhere else from there. I think it's important to make sure you encourage all of them, like they start them at the same level, like they can all achieve the same things, and make sure they know it's like a safe space for them to go, and like where they can kind of put the rest of it out of their mind.
Anybody else? Okay. Great. Here's a quote from Sandra Bloom, who was one of the speakers in the video. She works at Drexel, and she's created this model. And her quote is, "The educators must face what has become an intolerable burden: how to educate children who are disturbed, hyper-aroused, and whose behavior often interferes with their own learning and learning of others." So that's kind of the task, right? And some of your responses dealing with toolboxes and having empathy. I think it all dials down, all the ideas is this idea of relationships. I think they spoke about the relationships many times, that's the sanctuary, that's where you hear about, students that kind of make it. And when they ask a student what happened and why do you think you made it and your neighbor didn't make it, more times than not, they always talk about a certain relationship. It was a certain aunt, it was a certain teacher, it was a certain coach. So I'm going to encourage you to really, as you begin teaching, to really put the relationship piece as number one. And it's going to be more difficult to create relationships when we're virtual as when we're live. But this idea of building relationships is key. So I just have a little chart here, and we can look at the differences, when it's live and the authentic, all the different interactions that you have with your students, walking down the hall, seeing a haircut, giving somebody a high five. You can kind of tell how your students are doing because they're live and they're with you, okay? It's much more difficult when they're virtual. There's no more sports events. There's not much spontaneity when you're online, right? So there's one story that comes to mind. At Jesu, a girl in my class who was very, very quiet, she won the fire prevention essay in 7th grade, and the class just went nuts. It was the cutest thing. You don't have those spontaneous events anymore. and teachable moments. You know, when you see a student who is particularly kind or made a good choice, you can't really shout them out for it because they're not doing much besides sitting on their screen. And to be frank, I know Jesu recently, they had their middle school students come in before their lower grade students because they found middle school students are so disengaged. They're on their phones a lot more now. So just be aware that your particular age group that you're teaching, in my teaching experience and coaching, is the most difficult with this virtual world. So some ideas that I have that I've noticed from students that I've coached that has worked well is to check in with your students before every class. And that means you can say their name, you can ask them how they're feeling, you can notice someone's new sweatshirt, you can notice that someone has a haircut, you can notice that there's someone who's tired. But I would just encourage you to check in before every class. So you begin teaching in a couple weeks, correct? Can someone just tell me yes or no? Yes, okay. What's the protocol to kind of onboard you with your classes? Will you be introduced by the lead teacher and then kind of brought in, or do you kind of just start cold turkey? Eric, do you want to speak to that? Maybe?
I might be best positioned to answer that question. So our mentors are going to start reaching out, if they haven't done so already, by email to their teachers, and then they're going to start that conversation about what is the best way for me to enter this classroom. It's really going to be we're hoping that it's a conversation between mentors and the faculty advisor themselves about the best way to introduce them. So I think a lot of that is unfortunately kind of TBD right now as they start connecting with their faculty advisors over the next week or so.
Okay. Great. Then also something else that one teacher uses that works really well is music. So he begins every class with music. This could be a song from the past that he shares with the students that it might remind him of something. It kind of humanizes him. It could be pop music, but kids really do respond well. It kind of humanizes just the whole virtual world. And also humor. So as you get to know your students, humor breaks all that awkwardness down, and they do respond well. Having taught junior high for a long time, junior high kids love to laugh. Have any of you experienced anything that your teachers presently do that you think works well during your time at St. Joe's or Temple the past 2 semesters?
I think that check-ins are really, really great. I mean, I personally appreciate them as a student. And while the students we're teaching might not realize like at the moment that they need the check-in, I feel like afterwards you're like, oh, like I needed someone to ask me how I was doing, kind of.
Great. And does your teacher check in with you like one-on-one, or does he or she just do it before the class begins, sort of a thing?
In my experience, it's usually before the class begins. But I think teachers, if they realize that a student is struggling, they'll approach them one-on-one.
Great. Tell me how you're feeling just about being taught virtually. Are you kind of sick of it? Are you managing okay?
I don't think it's really bad, but it's not fun, like sitting on your computer all day long. And then as college students, most of our work is on our computer too. So after class, we sit on our computer for even more time. I think it can get a little tiring, but I think a lot of our professors have done a really good job at trying to engage us, but there's just some times in some classes where there's no getting the kids to engage. It's just like some people have just given up on trying.
Yeah, right. It's just not fun, right? It's just not fun.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like some classes, it's definitely professors make it more engageable, but some classes there's just no engagement, so it makes it not like as smooth as it would be in person. And then also too, just staring at a screen for a long time can get kind of tiresome. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just find it harder to pay attention during the online classes because you don't have the atmosphere of like your professor being in front of you and your friends being around you. I find it much more like distractible and easier to like go on your phone or check an email instead of paying attention.
Yeah, I was gonna say a similar thing, just how draining it is, especially after almost a year of it. I feel like everyone's just over it, professors and teachers and students alike. So if we're all struggling in college, I can only imagine what it would be like as a middle schooler.
Yeah. So just try to remember how you feel for the classes that are done well and the ones that are a little bit not done quite as well and are kind of boring. Okay. These are just some ideas that I've seen that have worked well, but you're in it and you're sitting through classes that, you know, so try and reflect on what you've enjoyed and what you've liked and what you have found beneficial and try to implement those same things too. Because yeah, like you're all 20-year-olds and you're not 12. I mean, can you imagine being 12 when you just crave that socialization? Okay. So we talked about the fact that the traumas that the students had, you know, they didn't go away. And then we had the stress of this year. So not to make us be all to make this worse, but here are some definite stressors. So lots of our students would receive free breakfast and free lunch and no longer have that. So that's an added stress. There's lots of families who they rely on those meals. So there's lots of hungry students right now. There's no more sports and activities, which we all know is a great outlet. A number of students work in very crowded workplaces, which makes learning difficult. There's lots of noise, there's lots of family. There's not a lot of quiet time. A lot of students have to babysit siblings while trying to learn online. I've seen that a number of times. And like I said before, with JZoo, what their main problem is that junior high, they spend so much time on their phone and they're so distracted. So if you can think of a creative way when you're teaching your students to put their phones away, try it. But that's been very, very difficult for lots of teachers. Lots of families have experienced job losses, obviously very stressful. Death of loved ones due to COVID-19. So I know at JZoo, they brought junior high back. A lot did not come back because they lost family members and are not ready to kind of go back into the real world for fear of getting COVID. And we have racial unrest. So it's a very, very, very stressful time. I don't need to tell you that. But if you can just imagine what you described, like you didn't grow up with kind of the same trauma. So we're all feeling stressed naturally, but it's exacerbated if you already had that trauma going on. So, all right. Did I miss anything from the stress of this past year? I think I covered everything, but if I missed something, you can just chime in. No.
Yes, political unrest.
Political unrest, okay, thank you. Yeah, so we have a whole smorgasbord of stress to choose from. So here's a quote that I found stunning. Student surveys consistently find that fewer than half believe their teachers care about them. I would guess a number or even lower among the behavior challenging population. So does this surprise you, this quote? Does it not surprise you? Does it surprise you?
I would say it doesn't really surprise me.
Okay.
I would say it doesn't surprise me because I feel like kids are very intuitive, and like if a teacher has a favorite, you can tell. Or like if a teacher doesn't like a student, or like that student annoys the teacher because he misbehaves for whatever reason, like I feel like students pick up on that and like have reactions to school or opinions about school based on those experiences and feelings.
Is it disturbing to kind of read that, do you think? Like this personally just kind of disturbs me. So this kind of goes back, you know, if you don't feel like your teacher cares about you, that's going to affect the relationship, right? And if we all, you know, if the relationship piece is key, this is kind of problematic.
I would say it kind of surprises me a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been blessed to have really good, fantastic teachers who I felt have cared about me through my entire educational career. But I like to think about like the role that teachers play in the development of a child is much more than just being an instructor. Sometimes it's a pseudo parent at times. So it kind of makes me sad to think that this may be true, because I kind of view teachers in such a good and like impactful spotlight, which I choose to believe that they are and can play and like in a child's life. Yeah.
I actually agree with that. This did surprise me also because a lot of people who have played a big role in my life are teachers. And it's actually upsetting because you think of all the good that teachers can do, but they have that same influence even if it's negative. So a lot of those students are getting, you know, the other side of that coin, especially the, you know, behaviorally challenged students, which is pretty upsetting to hear. So I would say this did shock me.
I would say that this statistic did not shock me. I do think teachers are really important, and I've never had a bad experience. I know other people who have had really bad experiences, so I know they would believe this. But I also think it turns back into the vicious cycle, traumatic upbringing that these kids could be living. If they feel like the entire world is against them, then why would they think that their teacher cares? If they feel like they are constantly in this hopeless situation. I think that this could be playing into that. And also into the fact that they just feel that they have no outlet.
To build off what Megan just said, building trust, I think, is a really big thing for building any teacher-student relationship. And if the class sizes are big and you switch teachers every, say, like 40 minutes, an hour, it's hard to build those connections that you really, that would build that trust that the kid would feel like that their teacher does actually care about them.
To add along with like the big class size, I think also another thing that builds student relationships is when the teacher actually does try to teach the students and like actually puts energy into it. Because I have seen, like, even though I have been blessed with amazing teachers who loved doing what they did, there were teachers that didn't really want to be there, that didn't really put the energy. And so the kids see that. And so when they're saying, if the teacher doesn't care, then why should I care about like what I'm doing? And it kind of like takes away their enthusiasm about it.
Going back to the word trust, I kind of like that too, because I think teachers have more power than they realize when it comes to like their influence in a kid's life. Because school can kind of like be an escape when like we watch the video about maybe their home life either like just isn't great, it's not safe for whatever reason, and they kind of come to school for an escape, and a teacher can be someone who either like makes their life even better throughout that escape or maybe makes it worse or doesn't do anything about it.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to ask you guys to take about 5 or 7 minutes. I want you to think of a teacher who you believe cared about you, and what did they do and say that made you believe that they cared about you? So I'm really interested in what they did and said that made you believe that they cared about you. And this could be a teacher from pre-K all the way up to present day. Think of a teacher you believe cared about you, and what did they do and say that made you believe that they cared about you? All right, so we'll take about 8 minutes or so. We'll come back at 5:45. If you want to turn your camera off, you can. If not, you can just jot down some thoughts with your camera on. Okay, why don't we come back together? I'd love to hear from many of you. What I want to do is jot down notes, and I'll send this list to Eric and have him send this to you. So feel free to share what your teacher did or said that made you believe that he or she cared about you.
In kindergarten, I forgot my lunch and my teacher gave me her ramen.
Adorable.
One of my English teachers in high school, he was just always somebody I could go to for conversation, especially like if I didn't have any friends in the class, I could always just go up to him and start up a conversation. He was always like very welcoming. And then, you know, at one point I was going through a medical emergency and he would just always check in on me before class. He made sure not to do it during class so that other people weren't aware of it if I didn't want them to be. And just like constantly showing that care and just attention.
I had a social studies teacher in high school, a government teacher in high school. And he worked really hard to like get engaged with each of the students in my class and like know what they're into. And then on every exam or test or quiz that we took, all of the questions, like our names were like all like the answers, and they were like related in the questions and like what we were involved in. So you could really tell that he like knew our class really well. It's kind of cool.
In first grade, I found out that I had to wear glasses in order to see the board, and a kid made fun of me, and I cried, and my teacher wore her glasses instead of contacts for the whole rest of the year so that I would have someone to wear glasses with me.
My fourth grade teacher would never like mark me up, mark me late because before like from pre-K to eighth grade, I had to travel like an hour and a half to go to school because my mom used to work there and she would be the only one to pick me up. And so because of that, like I would wake up at 6 in the morning to go to school and get there at 8. But sometimes due to trains in New York City, I would get there like maybe 10 minutes late, 20 minutes late, and I never told anyone why. And until like she found out. And so after that, like she would always make sure like I never got marked down like for being reprimanded or being suspended due to like tardiness.
This is like two, but my first grade teacher was married to my sister's fourth grade teacher, and we were in those grades at the same time. But in first grade, for the majority of the year, I was in a wheelchair, and my teacher and my sister's teacher knew exactly how insecure I was about that, and they would purposely allow that my sister was with me for like between classes or whenever they had the chance, so that like she would be there to comfort me and make sure like I was okay, and they would let her like miss out on like 5 minutes of a class to come check up on me and make sure like I was doing fine, nothing hurt, like I had my medicine and everything.
Just this past semester with the pandemic and everything going on, I think one thing that a specific professor really went out of her way to do was just being accommodating. And I think that really shows that, you know, the person cares more about you and your well-being than just getting the work done or getting the grades in, just taking their time to check in and kind of work around your personal emergencies.
Yeah, I had a similar experience this past semester. I was just really struggling with like the transition to online learning and all that stuff. And I actually had a few professors that were super accommodating. But one of them, she knew I was having a really rough week and she made me potato soup because she knows I love potatoes, which is really nice.
I had a professor my senior year of high school that was known for staying in touch with students like in college to make sure that they transitioned okay. And like 1 month after coming to St. Joe's, I got an email from my senior teacher in high school like asking how my transition was, and he knew like my school and my major.
Yeah, kind of going off that, my guidance counselor from high school, she, for some reason, people didn't really like her, but I don't know, they just didn't make the effort to get to know her. And she reached over to my mom, my sister, and I this past summer just to check in. She doesn't work at my high school anymore. She actually moved to California, but she still wanted to check in and see how everyone was, which I thought was super nice.
I used to abhor public speaking, and I still do, just like a little bit less because of my 10th grade English teacher, and she was also my mock trial coach. And she kind of knew that I was feeling anxiety about it, and she helped me kind of pinpoint exactly why I was feeling it and ways to cope with it. And I've definitely grown because of her.
In my high school math teacher, I have like anxiety and stuff, like, so it can sometimes affect my test taking, and so I get like accommodations to like take like my tests longer and stuff. And some teachers didn't like to like weren't as like nice about it as my math teacher was in high school, but she would always make sure I felt comfortable taking the test and that I had all the time I needed. I could take it anywhere I wanted. So that like really helped with my anxiety and stuff. It made school a little bit easier.
I can go. Most of my senior year, I was in the hospital, and my trigonometry teacher, she actually got like visitor clearances and started teaching me the lessons after school, because like I went to a private Christian school, so we didn't have like the online capabilities, and so she actually took it upon herself to teach me stuff so I didn't fall behind.
Mama, okay, you can go.
Oh, thank you. But I grew up in a more unsafe neighborhood and lower class community, and a lot of people did in my high school. And this class I took, which was a law class, and in my high school in general, there's just a lot more minority students. In my law class, we were talking about how to handle police, and this was when police brutality was all over the news. It still is. But a lot of the students had really big opinions on it and were arguing about it. And because it was high school, their instinct was like, oh, I'm going to fight back if this ever happens to me. And my teacher ended up getting very angry, but in a way that showed like he didn't want us to do that. And I distinctly remember this quote where he said, he was just really being honest with us. And he said, like, I don't really have any kids. I consider you guys my kids, and I'm not going to go on TV and see any of your faces in a situation like this. And so he took control of the situation, and then he taught us what we should do if we were ever to get pulled over by police, because he understands a lot of that stuff will happen to his students. So I think recognizing the obstacles your students are going to face for like the rest of their lives, and making sure that they are also aware of that and have proper education on how to remove themselves from that situation as safe as possible. So that definitely showed that he cared about us and all of his students.
My mock trial coach has always like kept in touch with everyone, and she had a dinner party at her house where she like made our team dinner after we graduated during our like freshman winter break. And she always like checks in on everyone and like texts them happy birthday still, and asks like how they were doing with COVID.
I had a teacher in middle school. She was like a language arts teacher, and she knew that I kind of came from like a chaotic home life. So she would stay after school with me and like just let me hang out in her room and do all my homework so I could get it done.
I actually have another one. This is really big, so I don't know how I forgot about it, but I did debate in high school, and I stayed really close with my coach, and he had a really big impact on my life. And now I'm doing it at St. Joe's, and we actually host a tournament for high schoolers. And so he brought my high school team from Florida up to our tournament. So that was really cool.
All right, well, you were cared for. And I really enjoy this exercise. It just makes me feel good, like to think about someone that really did something for you. So hopefully you found this beneficial just personally, as well as it's important to reflect on teachers that showed this to you, because you want to be the same person for your own students. And even though it is still virtual, there are ways to show care. Okay, so I will get these to Eric and he can pass them along to you, just so you kind of can think more about some action steps. I think sometimes too, when you begin teaching, you could be nervous or anxious about what the material is and how to teach, right? But I think, you know, it's important to reflect on action steps to kind of show care as well. Okay. So I will pass them along to Eric to pass them along to you, as well as the PowerPoint. And I'm going to give you a homework assignment because I'm going to see you in a couple weeks, I think, to kind of talk about how things are going. So rather than read this whole thing to you, it's basically just a reflection question on the things that we talked about tonight that I want you to think about after you start teaching. Okay. And then we'll share some of your responses. And then I think for part 2, I'm thinking of talking about going from relationships to how to engage students. Okay, if something else comes up that you would prefer talking about, please feel free to reach out to me. Okay, I know Eric spoke about the whole virtual world and how to teach online. To be honest with you, I'm not that great at that because I'm not really doing it. I mean, I know some different tricks, but I think if you're a good teacher and you're present and you're engaged, all the bells and whistles don't make it that much better, to be honest with you. Okay, so I'll leave this with Eric to pass along to you. Here is your homework, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and I wish you the best of luck.
Great, thank you, Elizabeth. We really appreciate it. Thank you for joining us today. That was fantastic, and you know, made me think back to you know, my high school days and my relationships with teachers. And just wanted to say thank you for getting us into the mind frame of being teachers and being mentors for our students. So thank you once again. We will see Elizabeth in about 2 weeks from now for part 2 of our conversation with her. So this is so long, not goodbye, but thank you again, Elizabeth, for joining us today.
Okay, and you'll pass this along to the students? Eric?
Yes, I'll pass along the
Okay.
PowerPoint and everything.
Okay, thank you so much. Bye, guys. Good luck.
Take care. Okay, so before we move on to our next bit, I just want to have 2 quick pieces before we move on to our next bit. So you might have seen that I'm recording this session. I'm going to be recording all of our Thursday sessions. I just don't want to put anybody in an uncomfortable position. If you are uncomfortable being recorded, please feel free to mute your videos for the duration of the program. I encourage you to only do that if there are, you know, reasons for it. If you are comfortable with it, I would encourage you to keep your videos on. But I do want to just keep this as safe and open of a space for you all if you prefer, for whatever reason, to not be recorded. I will be recording these sessions so that I can learn from them personally, as well as anybody who is missing the session for any type of excused absence. We could provide all the curriculum and you know, conversations to them at a later time. We are about to go on a break. We're going to break for 5 minutes from 6 o'clock to 6:05. I know we didn't get a chance to do introductions for everybody, so if you don't mind just posting into the chat if you're comfortable doing a quick introduction. I didn't know who we got to and who we didn't. So if you're comfortable and would like to just do a quick introduction, just put like a yes into the chat, and we'll go around just top to bottom of whoever wants to introduce themselves into the chat if you feel comfortable with that. So we'll break from 6 to 6:05. Feel free to take a step away from your computer. If you would like to do an introduction, just go ahead and drop some just a yes or something like that into the chat, and we'll start with introductions right when we get back, and then move into everything else. Okay, 5 minutes, and we'll see you back at 6:05. Okay, looks like it is 6:05. In an attempt to get us out of here just a few minutes early, I'm going to ask us all to come back. So thank you all for rejoining. We did have a few brave souls say that they would like to introduce themselves, and we'll just go straight down the list. If you didn't get a chance to introduce yourselves today, don't worry. There will be plenty of times for you to introduce yourselves to the entire crew here down the road throughout the semester. But let's kick it off with August. Do you want to get us started, August?
Hey guys, I'm August. I'm a senior IR major at St. Joe's, and I'll be teaching at the JSU School for the girls, and looking forward to it.
Great, thank you. Natalie, you want to go next?
Hi everybody, I'm Natalie. I'm a senior at Temple. I'm a geography major, and I'm teaching at Amy Northwest. I'm not sure of the grade, but yeah, I'm really excited.
Great, thanks, Natalie. Gianna, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Gianna. Hi, I'm Gianna. I'm a sophomore political science major at St. Joe's, and I'll be working with Juniata Park Academy.
Great, thank you. Kelsey, you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks, Kristen, for shouting out Model UN. But my name is Kelsey. I'm a junior poli-sci major at St. Joe's, and I will be mentoring at St. Gabriel.
Great, thank you, Kelsey. Jolie, you're next.
Hi, I'm Jolie. I'm a junior political science major at St. Joe's, and I'll be at St. Mary's.
Great, thank you. That brings us to Chris. Want to go ahead, Chris?
Hi, I am a history major. I'm a junior at St. Joe's, and I am at the JSU Boys, I believe.
Great, thank you, Chris. And last but certainly not least, Jimmy, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Jimmy. I'm going to be at the New Foundations Charter School, and I'm a junior at Temple right now as a global studies major.
Great. Thank you all for those brief introductions. Really appreciate it. Really excited for this group of mentors. This is by far the largest group of mentors that we've had in the Global Smarts program. I'm going to do my best to get to know each and every one of you to the best of my ability. Granted, we are all virtual, but again, just want to say thank you all for taking your spring semester of whatever year you're in, sophomore, juniors, and seniors most likely, to work with students at this really critical time. So as we all know, our students are mostly all learning from home, which presents a number of challenges, including a severe lack of extracurricular programming. So we're really excited as the World Affairs Council to put on some really critical extracurricular programming for students. And we really are excited to continue this program stronger than ever with more mentors and more students than ever in this really critical year. So unfortunately, the best way to go about this sometimes is just me screen sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share a little bit for us. Just on a few, just for a few slides. I have some information that I would like to get to you all. Just a show of thumbs, can you guys see my screen all right? Or should I go into full presenter mode? Okay, I think we could see it all right. So again, welcome to the 2021 Global Smarts Mentoring Program. Very excited for you all to join us. So what exactly is the World Affairs Council? What organization are you guys pairing up with? Well, the World Affairs Council was established in 1949, so right off the end of World War II. It's a private, nonprofit, nonpartisan educational organization dedicated to engaging people of all ages in matters of national and international significance. Our core is education. We work with both students at the middle school level. That's the youngest age that we work with. We also work with high school students. We have a variety of programs for high school students. And we also have adult members of our organization who come to speaker programs, like podium programs where we bring in world leaders to speak to them, as well as international travel tours, which are really exciting. It gives people an opportunity to explore cultures and learn about the world in kind of like a firsthand setting. Our kind of tagline, mission statement, if you will, if it's boiled down to one sentence, is in a democracy, agreement is not essential, participation is. You'll see on the right just kind of some of the ways that we dedicate ourselves to this mission. If you're interested at all about the World Affairs Council, we have a website, wacphila.org, wacphila.org. Clicking around that will give you a lot of information about our organization. And Kristen and I are also happy to answer any questions that you guys have about our organization. But let's meet the council team. So we are a strong team of 3. We actually punch way above our weight in terms of the amount of programming that we do. Every year, traditionally, we reach about 2,000 students, over 2,000 students per year, which, for a staff of 3 is pretty incredible. We put on, again, high school programming and middle school programming for a lot of students from the Philadelphia area, but we touch on students from private schools, parochial schools, public schools, charter schools, really the whole distance. We have a St. Joe's grad in Casey Trapp is a St. Joe's grad, so she represents the Hawks. And I am a grad of Temple University. So both schools represented by alumni in our department. So really exciting. And of course, Kristen, would you like to introduce yourself as the head of our department?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Eric, for the opportunity. So hi, everyone. Kristen Hutchinson, Vice President of Education for the World Affairs Council. Just really quickly, I've been with the council for, I guess, 8 years now. I ran Global Smarts for like 3 years. So it's really great to see some returning mentors. And I know I had the chance to interview a lot of you guys back in the fall as well. I think Eric would probably agree, Model UN and Global Smarts are our favorite programs. We just love the programs and the fact that we get the chance to work with the youngest group of students that we serve in the education department. So I'm just really looking forward to getting to know you guys and also just being a source of support for you all and the program this year. Believe it or not, this year we've actually, with this year's middle school cohort, we would have served 1,000 students since the program's inception in 2012. So it's a really great program. It's so important to the council's mission. And I think now more than ever in today's highly politicized and charged climate, this program probably means so much more to our students and the programming that we do than ever. So I just want to thank you guys for taking the chance to interview for this program. You could have applied for any remote internship this semester and you applied for this one. And I just look forward to the chance to build community with you all. In the virtual space, it's going to look a little bit different. We won't have the chance to talk before our meetings the way we kind of used to in our conference room at the World Affairs Council, but you don't have to battle Center City traffic this year. So that'll be something that I'm sure a lot of you guys will appreciate. So thanks, Eric, for the chance to introduce myself.
Of course, yeah. Kristen, again, is our fearless leader of our department and is just a overwhelmingly excellent person as well. So really grateful for her leadership during what is, in our country, in our history, a very tumultuous time. And Kristen is doing a fantastic job leading our department and continuing to grow amidst a pandemic and civil unrest and plenty of other things going on. So tip of my cap to Kristen, who everything that we do is kind of borrowed from her brain, either directly or indirectly. So fantastic work from our team putting together programs. I will just go into a little bit of a further introduction of myself. I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison for my undergraduate degree, and then I went to Temple University for my master's degree. I thought about putting pictures of me doing my various hobbies up, but then I thought, who needs to see me like sitting outside of a tent or like, doing any of my other hobbies. So I just decided to post some pictures of my dog here. This is Riley. She's the greatest thing that is in my life, and I love her a lot. So she's really cute and a handful sometimes, but it's always better to look at pictures of dogs than pictures of me sitting, again, outside like a campfire or something like that. So just to go through, just very briefly, the World Affairs Council has been around since before color photographs, obviously. We've been putting on educational programs for Philadelphia's high school audiences for a long time, and we really do bring in excellent speakers. So President Reagan, President Carter, sorry, can't believe I'm blanking on that right now in the bottom right. Colin Powell right in the top center. And then one of our tours, international tours as well. and just a long history of educational programming, which goes all the way up until today. These are photos taken from the last couple of years. The World Affairs Council does have a special relationship with one school. You'll see a couple of individuals holding up Bodine sweatshirts. Bodine is a public high school in the city of Philadelphia. It's in the Northern Liberties neighborhood, and we partner with them. Specifically, we actually helped co-found the school back in the mid-1980s, and we work very closely with their students. We bring them to our programmings. We give them special programming. We bring speakers to their schools, and overwhelmingly a fantastic relationship with Bodine. So can't say enough about our educational programming. We also have a photo of Global Smarts. The bottom left photo right here is a photo of Global Smarts in action. So really excited about adding to this fantastic series of photos with, unfortunately, screenshots of virtual meetings, but excited to continue on our legacy. So I'm just going to quickly talk about the Student Diplomat program, Student Diplomat Junior Model United Nations program, because really that's why we're all here, is this Student Diplomat program. The Student Diplomat program for middle school students is a 5-month-long program that introduces over 550 middle school students to the concepts of international affairs and cultural diplomacy. So again, there's a large program here with over 550 students in it. The Global Smarts program, the program that we're all engaged in right now, is a subset of that Junior Model UN program. So the 180, 190 students that we're working with are a subset of that 550 students larger program. So you'll see that we have selected for this year our topic of ensuring healthy lives and promoting well-being for all. Off the back of a global health crisis, we thought that topics in global health would be really interesting for our students to be participating with or interacting with. There are per student fees for our programs, but all of our fees are waived for Global Smarts participants. So all of the students are coming to us from Title I schools, which means they just are residing in economically disadvantaged neighborhoods. And we are thrilled to be able to put on this program free of cost for our students. So just a quick timeline of where we're at. The Junior Model UN program runs January to May. So we're actually in the start of our Junior Model UN program right now. And thank you to anybody who's able and willing to come to our cultural diplomacy conference today. Thank you guys. We experienced a couple technical glitches that we thought we had worked out, but we're hopeful to not experience those technical glitches tomorrow. But we are in the middle of our cultural diplomacy conference. It's the first of our 3 programs, and everything that we do builds up to that Junior Model UN final conference in May. So all of the work that we do with our students is really building up to the Super Bowl of Junior Model UN, which is the Junior Model UN final conference. There's also a prep conference in March. Typically, these would all be held well, the first one would be held at the Penn Museum on Penn's campus, and the March and May conferences would be held on Temple's campus, Temple University's campus. But again, this year entirely virtually. So the Global Smarts Mentoring Program, a quick shout out. We did receive the 2020 Lindy Award for Excellence in K-12 Partnerships, a fantastic award that we got for building since 2012, right, Kristen? I think 2012 was our first year. So about 8 or 9 years now of hard work and dedication has gone into building this program that we feel is a really successful opportunity for students to engage in a mentorship relationship between students from St. Joe's and Temple and various middle schools throughout the city. Again, it's all about this weekly individual and small group instruction that is really at the core of this program. We'll talk about it, but, and I'm really glad that Ms. Gallagher mentioned it, but relationship building is really at the core of this program. And that's something that we want to highlight this year, is the importance of relationship building to student success, and making sure that students, understand that last conversation that we had, right? The importance of having teachers and educators who really demonstrate the amount of care that they have for them. So critical parts of our program right there. So the mentor role. This is kind of the graphic that we use, because it is essentially the downward flow of information from council staff like Kristen and myself to you mentors, who then work directly with students. So we're excited at the ability to train you guys with everything that you need to be successful for this year. For this cohort, we have 33 mentors serving 189 students in 9 schools. One school, JSU, we might have heard, is split between boys and girls. So same school, but you guys are effectively 2 different schools for 2 different cohorts, 2 different groups, for lack of a better word. So mentors prepare their students for the program through intensive support, lessons, and activities. Relationship building, cross-cultural understanding, and character development are at the core of the mentorship role. You'll meet with your students once per week for 11 to 12 weeks, working with students to develop both hard skills, like geographical knowledge and understanding of the UN and international organizations, as well as soft skills, like public speaking and peer leadership. So really important there, that we both work on the hard skills and the soft skills for our students. And all of your work, again, culminates in the Junior Model UN Final Conference in May. So again, just trying to give you some perspective on what this course is, what you guys have interviewed for and signed up for, and so that you have kind of a broader sense of what we're trying to accomplish in this program. In future sessions, we'll talk about specific lesson plans and how to interact with your students and everything like that. This session really is meant to be a overarching kind of bird's eye view of what this program is. So what are our mentor expectations? There's a lot of content in here, and I'm just going to kind of go through that a little bit. For the most part, from my perspective, from the World Affairs Council perspective, most of your expectations revolve around attendance, okay? Attending all of your Global Smarts mentoring sessions, right? So we have 11 to 12 weeks of sessions. The expectation is that you'll be there for every single one of them. Our students are counting on you, we're counting on you, and the expectation is that each and every one of you will be attending every one of those Global Smart sessions every week, starting in January and running through the end of April, early May. Attend all Thursday staff meetings. So today's our first one. One excused absence is allowed, but please remember these sessions are critical for your success mentoring your students. As we start going through the semester, a lot more of the time is just going to be given to you to work in small groups, essentially breakout sessions throughout this 2-hour period. So we want to make sure that you guys have the time to meet as mentors in this space. There may be times for you that require you to meet outside of this space as well. We'll talk about that in a second. But if you do miss this session, do know that that does affect your co-mentors as well. And we'll talk about that co-mentorship relationship as well, because that's a very, very important relationship. You must attend or view, so attend live or view the recordings of the Cultural Diplomacy Conference and the Prep Conference. You must attend the final conference live. And we'll talk about that later. Content deliverables for me are relatively few. So at this point, I should mention that Temple students and St. Joe's students, you guys are going to have slightly different requirements from your university. Namely, St. Joe's students, you guys are enrolled in the class with Dr. Lisa Baglioni. She's going to have her own set of deliverables for you guys. Temple students, we can offline about this. Most of your expectations for joining with us this year are related to internship credit that you're receiving from Temple University. And we could talk about that during your onboarding sessions as interns. In terms of actual content delivery for me, you'll need to write a 2-page position paper from the perspective of your assigned country on your assigned topic. We'll talk about position papers in a second, but essentially what we're asking you to do is complete student assignments, the same things that we're assigning to students. We're just asking you to do them 2 to 3 weeks before your students are due, so that you have an experience of what your students are going through. All of these requirements, yes, we're asking you to do them at a college level, but ultimately a 2-page position paper on your assigned country's topic, your assigned country and your assigned topic is a relatively easy thing to accomplish. We don't foresee these things to be terribly burdensome in terms of time and effort, but we do want you to have those experiences of writing them. In addition, writing a resolution from the perspective of your assigned country. Again, we'll cover resolutions. If you're not familiar with what a resolution is, then we will cover all of that in future weeks. Just a side note for anybody who does have a Model UN experience, our Model UN is slightly tweaked from other Model UN experiences. So please do, a lot of those experiences will be really beneficial for you, but please do follow whatever rules and regulations that we have about writing resolutions and position papers. But that's a side conversation for later. The other thing that I would like to briefly mention is our speaker programs. We're going to ask you to attend a minimum of 2 World Affairs Council speaker programs and/or education series programs. So the World Affairs Council puts on really interesting and evocative programming for our adult members. There's a fee attached to attending these programs. We have a link for you guys to access for free. So it's cost free for you guys. You won't have to pay anything to join any of these programs. But our speakers department puts on really excellent programs for our adult members. If you are a St. Joe's student, you might remember that Condoleezza Rice was brought to St. Joe's University on September 11th, 2019, I guess. Time is a little fuzzy for me these days. But that is an example of the type of speaker program that we would do in the past. We would bring a world leader to speak to a large audience. Of course, these are all done virtually, which means access to them is much easier. I'm quickly going to just navigate to our speaker program. So if you go to wacphila.org and then go under speaker events and upcoming events, you'll see our landing page for upcoming events. We have a webinar coming up called How a New Generation of Leaders Will Transform America. So again, basically you can see the schedule, a 1-hour program that we would ask you to attend live and just, listen in and try and learn something about from one of these really interesting speakers. We have only 2 that are set for right now. These will multiply in the next couple of weeks. We generally do 1 every 2 to 3 weeks in the spring semester. So there will be plenty of opportunities. Now, I know that a lot of these sessions happen on Thursday afternoons from 5 to 7 p.m., which is exactly when our meeting times are. So we will provide recordings of them if desired. We can provide a recording of them. If you do watch a recording of the sessions, we just ask you to write a 1 to 2 paragraph response, just your thoughts and opinions on the speakers, something that you learned, something very short that's just an indication that you actually attended and watched the program. If you attend live, we get a list of students who attended live. So you don't have to write that response if you're able to attend live.
Eric, do you have the January speaker series page pulled up too? I'm wondering if we should show
Yep.
them that one as well.
I'll show you that as well.
Since that's
So,
today.
yeah, Kristen, do you want to just quickly explain while I navigate to that what our January or our education speaker series is?
Yeah, absolutely. So the council has put on these award-winning programs for our adult audiences, but we in the education department felt that some of the programs can be a little bit over the heads of our high school students. They would maybe need some prerequisite international affairs information or history that they just don't have going into some of our public programs. So we created a speaker series just for our high school audiences. We run these on the last Wednesday of every month. They're only an hour. And typically it's a very timely topic. I know this January 27th, we're going to be focusing on peace building, nonviolent conflicts, and reconciliation. So it's a really great topic considering all of the unrest, the domestic unrest that we've experienced in our country, and also in the wake of MLK Day. It's going to be a really timely program. So if you're interested in that, that's on Wednesday, January 27th. And as Eric said, for all of the speaker programs, he'll send you links on how to register. Don't register through our website because you might get that paywall on the speaker event side.
Yeah, absolutely. We will have education speaker series, as Kristen mentioned, the last Wednesday of every month. So there are plenty of opportunities for you all to join us. All you need to do is attend 2 of them. It could be any combination of our adult speaker series or our speaker programs dedicated to our high school audience. Yeah, so that is our expectations of you in terms of deliverables for this semester. I'm going to just keep going, and I'm gonna have questions at the end, I believe. I think that's the best way to do it. So just some quick mentor best practices, and we're coming to the conclusion of my PowerPoint in a second, but these are just kind of my initial thoughts that I want you all to take with you. This year, the Global Smarts program is going to demand a few things out of you. It's going to demand flexibility. This year, the schedule for this year is to the best of my ability set, but there are definitely going to be unforeseen things that come up between now and May. So flexibility is going to be incredibly important. Self-determination. I'm not going to be able to, look over the shoulder of all 33 of you at the same time. You're going to have to have some amount of self-determination in getting the program goals achieved. So that's going to include both a fair amount of independence and a fair amount of teamwork. Just highlighting the idea of teamwork, your co-mentorship team is incredibly important. And I encourage you guys to really think of that as a unit that is dedicated to a common goal of providing a really excellent educational experience for these students. There will also be some amount of independent work where, again, the World Affairs Council is not going to be able to put out every fire and solve every little issue. We are absolutely here for you for anything that you need, but some amount of independence is going to go a long way in your success in the program. Communication is key. This is something that I've kind of really thought about a lot in the past, 10 months or so. In a world full of uncertainty and changing circumstances, you have to focus on what you can control. Communication is something that you absolutely have the ability to control. Really, I just want to highlight your communication with your faculty advisor as being critical, and communication with co-mentors, the World Affairs Council, and St. Joe's and Temple also. I want to highlight those, but really that communication with your faculty advisor and communication with your co-mentors is incredibly important. Teamwork makes the dream work in every situation. Your mentorship unit is very important. Please communicate, show respect. We really do ask that co-mentoring units have equal work and equal time in them. Relationship building. Relationships with students is probably the best part of the program. We are fortunate to have a few returners with us. I'm gonna, if you don't mind returners, I'm just gonna kind of grab you all right at the end while everybody else is logging off. If you guys can just hang around for about 3 or 4 minutes, that would be really excellent for me. But they can tell you once we get a chance for them to use their voices a little bit and I kind of take a step back, they'll tell you that relationships with students are absolutely the best part of this program. Relationships with students often start slow and then pick up as the students get to know you. This is going to be one of our biggest priorities this year, given the virtual setting. Okay. So I just quickly want to introduce what our students were engaged with today. So I did meet a couple of our mentors that attended our Cultural Diplomacy Conference. Again, the Cultural Diplomacy Conference is part 1 of our Junior Model UN program, right? This program is all about our students interacting with the ideas of culture and diplomacy for the first time, getting an understanding of what world cultures are, how cultures are similar and different from each other, and how diplomacy and cultural diplomacy interact to solve world issues. We had 2 keynote presentations during today's program. One on culture from our friends at the Penn Museum, and one on diplomacy given by our team at the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. There were 2 breakout sessions right at the end. There were some technical difficulties with those breakout sessions. They're the International Classroom and Global Voyage experiences. Those are a little bit extracurricular for your understanding. Really the 2 things that we are going to ask you to watch are the keynote presentations by the Penn Museum and by the World Affairs Council of Philadelphia. This image down here is actually a hyperlinked image. Here, we'll drop it into the chat in a second. Kristen, if you don't mind dropping this into the chat. All of these are actually hyperlinked to various presentations, activities that our students can take on. So when we ask you to watch the 2 keynote presentations, you can go ahead and click this right here, and it will take you, I believe, to a Vimeo, and then ours is on YouTube, and you can go ahead and watch those. Combined, I believe they're about 50 minutes combined. So we're just going to ask you to watch those 2 videos prior to our session on our next Thursday's session. I know this is a lot of information. I apologize. I'll try and sum it up to the best of my ability. And that's why we also have the Google Classroom, which I'll mention in a second as well. So in terms of our deliverables for next week, we're going to ask you to watch Keynote Part 1 and Keynote Part 2 from the Cultural Diplomacy Conference. Many of you have already completed the next 2, but an introductory email to your faculty advisors from your group, so from your co-mentoring unit. Thank you for everybody who's already sent that. And then an introductory email to your students as well. All of that information can be found on our Google Classroom. So quickly just navigating into our Google Classroom. We have assignments up here, everything that you need to know in terms of the introduction to your students, and email introduction to your assigned faculty advisor. More information can be found, in here, as well as example letters. All right, there's a good example letter there as well. Again, thank you to everybody who has already completed those assignments. The introductory email to your faculty advisor and introductory email to your students. We are just going to ask that you watch those 2 keynotes before January 21st. Okay, at this moment, Kristen, is there anything immediate that I did not address? No?
No, I'd love to maybe, I guess you're going to questions next. Love to hear from the mentors, any questions they have.
Yeah, do you guys have any immediate questions that are applicable to the entire group? Anything that was, any questions that you had immediately?
So, sorry, I have a question. If we attended the conference today, do we not attend tomorrow?
Yep, it'll be the exact same thing tomorrow.
The exact same thing tomorrow, okay.
Also, if you attended the conference today, you don't have to watch those keynotes because you've already viewed those keynotes. Okay. Only watch these keynote addresses if you were unable to attend yesterday or are unable to attend tomorrow live for the conference.
Sounds good, thank you.
Yeah, of course, great question, Daniel.
I have kind of a logistical question. And that's so for all of the staff meetings, will we use the same link the same Zoom link that we used today?
Yep, absolutely. This link will be the same link that we use. So just go ahead and bookmark that or pin that or put it wherever you need so that you can find it. Great question again.
I had a quick question about the speaker, the RSVP thing. We can't go through the website. Is there a special link for us, and how would that be distributed when they come along?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of my responsibilities every session will be to provide you with the links for the upcoming sessions. Of course, I did not get those ready for this session. I got a lot of things ready for this session, but not our links. Kristen, would you be able to grab those from our website?
Yeah, I'll grab them for you.
Yeah, they are not publicly available links, and we ask you just not to share them with, don't post them on any forums or anything, because they are free access to our programs for you guys. But we will be providing you with those links in the future.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great question, Natalie. Okay, what I'm going to do for a second is we're going to just, I'm going to open up some breakout rooms. So I've assigned you all to breakout rooms with your co-mentors so that you guys can all just take a minute to say hi to each other. You might know each other from passing each other in classes or school. You might be meeting each other for the first time. I just want some things for you to consider. If you haven't yet wrote that introductory email to your students and faculty advisors, consider finding a time to discuss that outside of this session, because these breakout sessions are only going to last about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. And then, yeah, that's really what I want you guys to focus on, is if you have not yet done that, think about how you're going to write those introductions to your faculty advisors and your students, and do some introductions with each other if you've not yet had a chance. So I'm going to go ahead and open those breakout rooms right now. I have to stop sharing. And we will rejoin together at 6:45. So it's only 5 minutes together. Just for your note, in future sessions, these breakout sessions are likely going to take up longer portions of our meeting. So you'll get to hear less of my voice, hopefully, and more of you guys working together to figure out lesson plans, debriefing your sessions, preparing for next week's sessions, that type of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and open these breakout rooms. Go ahead and join them. And I will message you guys to let you know when they close in about 5 minutes. All right. Go ahead and start joining those rooms. Great. Whew, losing my voice. A lot of talking today. I can't stop from yelling when I'm doing presentations. I gotta bring my voice down a little bit.
Yeah.